Hi there, welcome to this week's Weekend Warrior video. I'm Mike Watchmaker, National Handicapper for Daily Racing Form. There are 9 graded stakes races Saturday on the National Stakes schedule, and all 9 of them are at Gulfstream Park. And I'm going to talk about 3 of those 9 graded stakes races. I'm going to talk about the Fountain of Youth, the feature of the card. I'm also going to talk about the Mac Diarmida and the Honey Fox. Interestingly, these 3 races are part of the late pick 5 or late pick 4 sequence Saturday at Gulfstream. Anyway, let's talk about the Fountain of Youth. And there were just questions galore here about all the prominent players. And the biggest questions involve the most prominent player, and that's Hidden Scroll, who was absolutely brilliant, winning his career debut earlier this year on the Pegasus World Cup undercard at Gulfstream. He just won off by 14 lengths under a pole, and yet he earned a 104 Beyer speed figure. He's obviously a very talented racehorse. He might be an out-and-out monster. But the thing of it is that that race took place in a 1-turn mile on a sloppy racetrack, and he's going 2 turns on Saturday on a fast racetrack against much more seasoned opposition, some of them stakes winners, others stakes placed. And it just goes against my nature to champion a horse like this when you're talking about betting. So while I completely acknowledge that Hidden Scroll might dominate this race much in the way that he dominated his career debut, I just can't take him as a betting prospect in this race. I would include him in multi-race exotics, but I wouldn't feature him on top. There are questions about other horses in here too. I mean, for example, Vekoma, very talented horse, won both of his starts last year, including the Nashua Stakes, earned good Beyer figures. The problem is that the company he beat was questionable, and now he's coming back off a near 4-month layoff, going 2 turns for the first time. Then you've got Signalman and Code of Honor. Both of them had interesting 2-year-old form last year. Signalman hit the board in the Breeders' Futurity and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and then won the Kentucky Jockey Club. I just have real questions about the strength of those races, particularly the Kentucky Jockey Club. Whereas Code of Honor finished second in the Champagne Stakes last year after a terrible, terrible start. But the Champagne form really hasn't aged all that well, and he was a disappointing 4th at odds on in the Mucho Man Stakes in his first start this year. And now he goes 2 turns for the first time, and there's no cinch, despite his pedigree, there's no cinch he's really going to like 2 turns. And then you got Global Campaign, who I think is going to be less than his morning line of 10-1. He won his first 2 career starts as the heavy favorite this meet at Gulfstream Park. But last time out in his first start going long, he struggled a bit, at least in terms of Beyer figures. He tailed off to a very underwhelming 77. There are a lot of questions in here. This is a race where I think you're supposed to go for a price, and I'm going with Bourbon War. Now, Bourbon War has questions about himself, too. I mean, he was 17-1 when he won his first career start, but he won that race decisively. I wasn't thrilled with his performance in the Remsen Stakes. He finished a soundly beaten 4th in that race, but, the Remsen was run on a cigar mile day at Aqueduct, where there was a strong track bias at play, at least in the early part of the card, and the times of the races and the fractions are very difficult to trust. And while Bourbon War came back to win his 3-year-old debut earlier in the Gulfstream meet, the horse that finished second ran back in the Southwest Stakes, was the favorite, and finished dismally. But still, I don't think that that's Bourbon War's fault. I like the fact that he won this allowance race over the Gulfstream main track at the Fountain of Youth distance. I like the fact that he's got a closing style that fits in a race that's got a ton of early speed. And I like the fact that he's going to be a bit of a price. So it's Bourbon War for me, and a Fountain of Youth that's just loaded with questions. Let's move on to the Mac Diarmida. This is the 14th and last race on the card. The Fountain of Youth is race 13. And there isn't any question that Channelmaker is the best horse in this race. 3 starts back, he was the winner of the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic at Belmont, and he's dropping out of the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Turf. And this is a decidedly softer spot. The problem is that he drew the extreme outside post, and this is a 3-turn, one of those 3-turn long turf races at Gulfstream, and I just don't see any way where he's not going to be locked into a wide trip. Now, he might be so good that he could overcome it, but he's going to be betting this race, and I just think he's in store for a tough trip. I like Hunter O'Reilly in this spot. Hunter O'Reilly made his first start back in 9 months when he finished fourth in the McKnight Handicap last month at Gulfstream. He finished well in that race. He finished behind Zulu Alpha, who won that race with a perfect trip. Hunter O'Reilly had a less than ideal trip, but I think he really will benefit from that outing. And he's got some back races that, while admittedly in 2017, back races at Saratoga, such as a win in the Bowling Green and a very close fourth in the Sword Dancer, that are plenty good enough to win this race. So I'm looking for Hunter O'Reilly to improve second start back off a long layoff, and I hope he pulls a slightly better trip than he got in his return. Let's wrap it up with the Honey Fox. This is race 11. And there isn't any question that Precieuse is the horse to beat in here. Precieuse was a Group 1 winner in France earlier in her career. She's made only one U.S. start. That was last summer at Saratoga. She was a narrowly beaten second in the De La Rose Stakes to Uni, who was a very underrated performer. She went on to win her next two starts. Uni did, including the Noble Damsel and the Grade 1 Matriarch. Precieuse is coming back off a long layoff, but she's trained by Chad Brown, one of the best layoff trainers in the business. She's much the horse to beat. That said, I think Valedictorian can take her. Valedictorian is in career form. I liked her two starts back in the Marshalls River because I thought she would be absolutely the controlling speed in that race. She was never sent to the lead. She was actually kind of taken back a little bit. She wound up finishing an even third all the way around the racetrack. Last time out in the Suwannee River at Gulfstream, she was sent to the lead, and she went wire to wire at 9-1. I think that she's more than capable of making a lead again in this race. I don't think the pace necessarily has to be all that fast. Like I said, she's in career form, and I'm looking for Valedictorian to win right back and upset Precieuse in the Honey Fox. And that's the way it looks for this week's Video Weekend Warrior. Good luck.